Saucy take.
Indiana may make the playoff this year. So we could, like last week, I had like levers to how saucy you wanted to get. I could say Indiana will make the playoff, but I'm not ready to do that. I think it's important for me to temper expectations and just say they've had a really, really good start. If you've been paying attention to what Curt Cignetti has been doing in Bloomington, it is super exciting. And I wanted to frankly apologize for making a mistake on Twitter on Monday because I was wrong about something. And I am hard-headed and I am annoying and I'm an asshole. But the one thing that I will try to do over and over and over again is that if I feel strongly about something or I have an opinion that turns out to be wrong, I want to make it right by admitting that I was wrong and explaining my thought process on how I got there. Okay.
Producer River, clip that and send that to Ari's wife, please.
Yeah. I literally say that. I say that to her when we're fighting and it drives her nuts. I have two things. I'm like, hey, can you give me a break? I'm not a bad guy. That's one. She hates that. Ooh. Two,
that never works.
Is, hey, when I'm wrong, I do a very good job of saying I'm wrong and sorry. So if I'm not doing that, then that means that we have a problem here. So
the problem when you do that, Ari, as someone who's been married a very long time, is they're still mad. And they accept your apology and they're glad you apologized, but they still want to be mad for a little while. And so you're still going to have to get yelled at or get the silent treatment depending on the level of offense. And then it does dissipate faster because you're not being stupid and hard-headed about it, but you are still going to get punished. Apologizing does not change that.
How long does your silent treatment last if you've done like a thing that's like 6 out of 10 on a spicy nugs offense scale?
Ooh, I would say that's a solid 3 hours or so.
Oh, God. If I mess up at home, like I get it for like 36 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
I admire the commitment to the bit.
Oh, I just think she hates me during that time. Like, I don't think it's a bit. Like, I think like it is. Somebody wrote they want us to suffer, man. And it's like when she puts me in the coldness prison, it is brutal. Like that walking by without making eye contact thing. But I do my best to not mess up as much as I can. And I did something really stupid this weekend. So, it's not her. It's me.
But let's talk about the stupid thing you did on Twitter. What were you wrong about on Twitter?
Okay. So we did Bubble Watch. Okay. And I do Bubble Watch every Sunday. Here's the graphic. And if you notice, there's a team there in the next 4 out. And that team is LSU. Okay. And you could probably make the case for Arizona and USC. But Indiana fans got angry at me, and rightfully so, for just nonchalantly putting a flawed LSU team in there who just lost their best player, and Harold Perkins is done for the year, ahead of Indiana in the next 4 out, which is a rational thing because the next 4 out, as I mentioned on Tuesday, are teams 16 to 20. Now, if you've been paying attention to Indiana, and I have tangentially, but I haven't been 100% watching all their games locked in, you would know that this is probably a top 20 team right now. At the very least, they've done what they need to do in order to be here. And funny enough, and the reason why LSU is getting caught in the crossfire here is that LSU and Indiana share an opponent. And that opponent was UCLA, and Indiana beat them better. Now, transitive property doesn't matter, but still, it's another data point.
But Indiana went there and beat them more soundly than LSU beat them in Baton Rouge.
Exactly. So at the very least, we don't know whether or not Indiana is going to keep winning, right? Like there is the danger that Indiana is a plucky, good, fun team that has yet to play anybody really all that outstanding and is probably going to be in a position where, they don't have to play Oregon. They don't have to play USC this year. They don't have to play Ohio State or Michigan until November so that they could fake it all the way to November. Like that is on the table. But in this sport, with the way that this is set up with a 12-team field, I can no longer get away with just favoring the teams that I know have recruited better, right? Because there are going to be more teams that make the playoff. There's going to be a ton of teams who make the playoff now that don't recruit top 10 classes on an annual basis. And I have to do my best and do a better job, frankly, of giving the teams that are in the mix and rightfully in the mix, the credit that they deserve in the moments that they've earned those. So Indiana has done that. And if Indiana beats Northwestern, which I think they will on Saturday, they will improve to 6-0. And they will be represented in my Bubble Watch. So I wanted to say, A, that if you look at Indiana's schedule, they play Ohio State and Michigan in November, and there's a bye week in between those two games. But everybody else, Northwestern, Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, and Purdue, if Indiana is as good as people think they might be, and Curt Cignetti has been a wonderful personality, I want to try to get him on the show, because I think that just a person that talks that talk and walks that walk is just interesting, especially at a place like this. That there is a legitimate path for this team to back into the playoff at 11, 12, 9, whatever. Like the schedule sets up, they don't have Oregon. They could beat Michigan. It's not crazy to think they could beat Michigan. Like,
Gary in the chat, is the way Michigan winning football game sustainable? That's the legitimate question. If Michigan's offense is what we've seen the last 2 weeks or the last two games, which USC and Minnesota, if that is the offense, Michigan can win most of their remaining games, but Indiana is one of the games that they might lose if they cannot throw a forward pass.
Yeah, especially because Indiana's offense has been exciting. Like, Maryland isn't
Maple Missile, Curtis Rourke.
Maryland hasn't been the 2000 Baltimore Ravens on defense this year, but Indiana turned the ball over 3 times in the first half on Saturday and then won by 2 scores. Like, that's not something that Indiana has done in the past. And the thing that Curt Cignetti has done is driven enthusiasm. He sent an email blast to the entire student body to get there. He predicted the win before it happened, which is something we rarely see coaches, if ever, do. And they upgraded their roster in the portal immediately to get guys in there that he thought could elevate the game. So, like, everything that you would want from a team that should be on bubble watch right now, Indiana has. And this is my olive branch of saying, hey, I think that this could happen. And I probably made an oversight on Sunday by not putting them in, and that will be rectified when they keep winning this coming Sunday.
Well, I'm with you. I think there's a chance. Look, they have to beat Nebraska, and I don't think that's a gimme. I think that's going to be a great game. But I do think they have to beat Nebraska, and they probably have to split Michigan and Ohio State. Yeah, they actually may get a mulligan. I don't know. Do they get a mulligan if they beat Michigan? Like, can they be 10-2 with this schedule?
Well, I think it depends on whether or not they make the Big Ten championship. Because if they are 10-2 and then don't make the Big Ten championship, then the 2 teams in the Big Ten championship are probably going to go, and then there might be a Notre Dame problem. It depends on let's put it this way. Indiana has a chance to get in at 10-2. I don't know if I feel strongly either way about yes, they will or no, they won't at this point, because we still have a lot of games to watch. But like, I do think that there is a legitimate pathway for this team to make it based on the schedule. Now, if the Nebraska game was Oregon, I probably wouldn't have written that column, right? Like, I think that Indiana is a good team. I don't know that they are a great team that I think is going to start all of a sudden competing with Ohio State. The spread of that game, in November could be 31 points for all I know. I don't know. But in the new makeup of the sport, it's not just about the Ohio State, Georgias, and Alabamas anymore. I've begrudgingly shared my opinion on the expansion of the playoff a million times. I don't want to do it anymore. We have to embrace the new system, and the new system includes teams like Indiana in that system, and
which is fun. Which is very fun, because they had no chance in the old system. Even a team this good had no chance in the old system. But
see, this is the thing, and I don't want to get dragged into this, but like, Indiana did have a chance in the old system because they could still beat the teams on their schedule and get there. Okay, so like, that's the thing. Like, in the old system,
they are never going to be Ohio State. As good as he is, they're not. They're never going to be that. They're never going to recruit that way.
In a given year, they could beat one of them one year, right? Like, it could happen if they're really good.
Maybe. But how about this? How about we just get a new Indiana every year, and that's fun. We let some people have some fun that don't normally get to have some fun. So people get to go to Mother Bear's Pizza and talk about how great the Hoosiers are at football, because they don't get to do that very often.
Yeah, and do you want to split off here to a secondary discussion before we go to the final take?
Absolutely.
Let's bring up Raymond's comment here, and I'm going to let you sink your teeth into that one.
Do you guys think Cignetti is in this for the long haul, Andy? I think Cignetti is going to go where he needs to go to win. Do I think he wants to stay at Indiana forever? he strikes me as a person who would like to win national championships. So no, I don't think he'll be at Indiana forever. How long will he be at Indiana? That probably depends on the size of the check they can write him.
Is there a certain school that you're familiar with that seems to be
that might have a job soon?
Interested in him at the moment? Like, I don't know. Like,
I don't know how interested the Florida people are in Curt Cignetti. I think he would actually be a tough sell because they'd be like, whoa, he just won at James Madison and one good year in Indiana, blah, blah, blah. But, and I've said this about Jamie Chadwell too, who's won at every level he's been at. Like, guys who win at every level tend to just keep winning. Kalen DeBoer, good example of this. Chris Kleiman is a good example of this. Lance Leipold's not having a great year, but he worked a miracle at Kansas. Like, guys who win at every level tend to keep winning. But I don't know that that's like I think they're going to want something sexier than that because they hired a guy from the Sun Belt before, and that bothers them. Like,
yeah, the fit thing is like we are scarred by the Sun Belt Billy comments.
Yeah, Rod Smith, he doesn't know the recruiting landscape in the South. Rod, do you know where he worked in 2007? Do you know what staff he was on? Oh yeah, he was on Nick Saban's first Alabama staff and worked there for a while. I think he can probably handle recruiting in the South.
He just gets it. I have a lot of respect for people, and Fran Brown is doing this too a little bit, who is at Syracuse, another place that you would like, honestly.
Yeah,
I think like
Fran Brown, by the way, another one. If you go, well, I don't know if you can recruit in the South because he's a Jersey guy, recruited in the Northeast. He went to Georgia. He recruited just fine. Fine.
But I do like the people who go to places that are viewed as just an impossible place to win and then rock shit out there. Like, I don't know what Syracuse Friday night, we got a banger on television Friday night. Okay, we're going to get to see more Fran Brown. That team could be undefeated right now with one different defensive call. But I do think that he is just an interesting, entertaining, and he makes you want to root for him. And I think that part of that, maybe that goes away when you're at Florida because, no one's rooting for the lovable underdog Florida Gators.
Yeah, you're not a lovable underdog. Yeah. Like getting on stage and saying, of course we want to beat Purdue, but we're going after Ohio State too. Like, we're coming for your necks. Like, that part, it doesn't ring the same at Florida or somewhere like that, or at Auburn or at LSU. Like, it doesn't.
But in December,
you're supposed to be able to beat those teams.
But in December, when Curt Cignetti was asked, what's your recruiting sales pitch to get kids to come to Indiana? And we're talking about a guy too, by the way, who is trying to recruit Juju Lewis right now. Like, how many other people at places like Indiana, and granted, there is a connection with the staff in Lewis, have been like resigned to the notion that 5-star quarterbacks are not supposed to go there and just don't recruit kids because there's no point in wasting time. Like, I think that everything that he's doing is a admirable way of proving that, hey, we aren't constricted by the expectations and what things are supposed to happen to Indiana. We're in a Big Ten school. We get all that Big Ten kindergarten cop money. And like, we like that Arnold kindergarten
cop money. Like what Arnold got. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just learned yesterday what Stallone got for Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. So yeah, I think.
What did they get?
You're right. It was like $12 million at a time when that was more than anybody ever got for anything.
Yeah. So yeah, anyway, Olive Branch to Indiana. Don't hate me. Love you guys. Rooting for you. I know that we're not supposed to be rooting, but like, who doesn't love a good underdog story? And now you actually have a chance to be in the system. So, you should have been included, and you will be. Just keep winning, though. Don't embarrass me now. Because that's what happens. Everybody was tweeting at me like, this is the kiss of death for Indiana now. You wrote this column. Indiana's cooked.
You've just doomed them to lose to Northwestern, Ari. That's what you did.
But no, they're actually really good. Like, and I also said, if your life depended on it, would you pick Indiana to beat LSU? And in the past, that would have been a good point. But this year, I'm not sure that's a great point. Like,
what would the spread be in a hypothetical neutral site Indiana LSU game right now?
This is a bad at math podcast, Andy. But the FPI, whatever that formula is, at ESPN has them next to each other, 19 and 20. And I don't know. I don't know that I would.
So the spread would be within a couple of points. It'd be
probably, yeah.
Wow.
Well, I think that the spread would also have an impact on the helmet and also like how people probably would be betting it. So I probably
True.
think it would probably be somewhere around like 7, if I'm being honest, not like 2. But I think that Indiana could win the game, is what I'm saying. And that isn't an insane thing that wasn't it for me to say you would pick LSU if your life depended on it was just wrong. So anyway, that's my formal apology. You can give me the silent treatment for 36 hours, but I'm sorry. Just forgive me. I'm a flawed human. I'm doing my best.